First truck I ever drove was this heavy haul chip truck. One time I was in line to move Bill Clinton.
I'll tell you what, I'll never have a few million miles under my belt, so I'm a little jealous of that.
Does that customer want their stuff in that truck? Maybe that's the most important part of this whole thing. You do whatever you want. That customer don't want their freight in a driverless truck. It's over. You ain't got no hauling to do. Get out there and make some money.
If you're thinking about a career in the trades and you want to know what employers actually look for, what the work is really like, and what nobody tells you before you get started, you're in the right place. Built in the Midwest features conversations that'll help you figure out if this path is for you.
You and I have had a lot of great conversations over the years about trucking and the trucking industry. And something I don't even know is if you were to go back to the beginning on when you got your CDL, what was your first thoughts about trucking? How'd you get into the trucking industry originally?
Yeah, like a lot of people, it all started in the sandbox. And that ain't no lie, because I don't know if kids do that anymore. So we always wanted to drive truck. Well, then Dad got into trucking. Dad, you got to show me how to drive.
Yeah. Start in the sandbox.
That's the way it went.
Yeah.
I mean, and then we got the advantage because Dad owned the trucking company. So we got to jump in and go at 17. Before you could really legally drive, you were able to drive your own dad's trucks.
Oh, yeah.
So we were able to go down and get our chauffeurs. And first truck I ever drove was this heavy haul chip truck.
At 17 years old?
17 years old.
Get the heck out of here. So you're still in high school.
It wasn't like lug. We were running 130, 140,000.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of people in the trucking industry work their entire lives and not haul more than 80,000 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, when you're running chip truck out of the woods, muddy roads.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other boulder ride.
You go from blacktop to mud. I mean, that was.
Oh my God. I'll tell you what.
More fun in the mud than you can imagine.
Oh yeah, a little sarcasm there. That's for sure. Oh, I look at like the loggers and even what we were just talking about hauling the oversized loads and these chip trucks in the woods, and I give the loggers so much credit because every day it's like, all right, here we go, bring a big fire extinguisher, because that's what we're going to be doing all day, is putting out fires, and especially this time of year when we have the frost coming out of the ground and people are getting stuck and buried in the woods, and it's just it's crazy out there. But I think that's one of those things about trucking that I really enjoy, is they say there's over 200 different divisions of trucking. Now, what divisions of trucking have you worked in? You're talking about heavy haul on the chip trailer side of things.
Yeah, I mean that's what got it started. And down the road, we moved on to my own truck, and then we started doing the van lines, which is around here. I mean, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything left for the van lines.
No, and that was really popular back in the day.
You get this economy booming, and that'll all come back. Van lines in the big cities, you're down, in Chicago.
And so people that don't know what van lines are, can you talk about that?
Well, movers. Movers. Furniture movers, but we had customers that were Snap-on. We had Mercury Marine. They would move their bigger CEOs and stuff around the country, taking over divisions, moving around. A lot of the stuff when California was growing in the 80s and 90s, that's where everybody was going.
So they were moving out there.
And then 2000s and beyond, we're all moving out of there. So that whole transition over 20, 30 years kept everybody in the van lines busy. And I mean multiple van lines, not just one. So you could climb the ladder at the van lines and do some really upper echelon moves. The better you got, the better numbers you had for claims, less claims. They would give you better loads. Celebrities. At one time, I was in line to move Bill Clinton to D.C.
Really?
Back in the day. And something happened where it kind of fell apart and never got to jump on it. Another time, we were involved in New York with Kodak. Kodak used to be big back in the day, and they called me and asked me if I'd be interested in going to Hawaii. Never did.
Come on.
It was one of those I kind of got ready for it, but told the wife. They said, "No, you're going to get you customer loaded up in Rochester, New York, which is the heart of Kodak, and we're going to bring you to San Francisco. We're going to wash your truck, and we're going to lift your whole truck up on the boat, and you're going
On a boat? No, come on.
on the boat." And I told her all about it, and by the time I got up to Rochester, all the dates changed, everything changed, and it fell apart. I'm like, she was all
Okay, but that is crazy to me.
So we're going to lift that on the boat.
And lift it on a boat and then take the boat out. And this was a big CEO of Kodak.
Yes. So I was going to move one of their employees out of Hawaii, the Big Island. When you get there, obviously it's pretty small. You're going to go right to the warehouse. Then what I would be doing is working to shuttle off of my truck in a little truck, to where the residence is.
Yeah.
At the time, the agent would have been moving that customer into the warehouse. So we'd have this operation going on for like 2 weeks. This is all laid out, and then it ended up canceling.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then they were going to put everything in that truck that I had, and then get back on the boat and come back over here, transition them to the States, back to the States.
Wow.
Or back to the mainland.
Get the
Never
heck out
happened.
of here. So, and I think a lot of people, this whole kind of conversation in this podcast is talking to young people and talking to people about kind of different opportunities that are out there, and getting them kind of excited about that. And so, in something like this, you don't see it. Yeah, that's kind of exciting. We just had someone come through. This was a couple years ago, but I just talked to him here, and he's been driving tour bus for some like major artists, around the country. And so,
running the music tours.
Yeah.
Always kind of wanted to, or even NASCAR.
Yeah. NASCAR, bring the
Stuff
truck.
like that.
Yeah.
Any type of racing, you'd be committed to go. I mean, but that's hard on the family. But you do that when you're young. These are things guys could pull off before they even think about having a family.
Yeah.
10, 15 years, get it out of the way. Work at it that way. I mean, it's just the other thing I did. Get into the bigger cities. Get into L.A. They call me. What a move. Hey, you want to go to Seattle? Sure. All the way up the West Coast. Well, the wife, I'm not coming home.
Yeah.
It's hard on the family, but where are you going? I'm going to be taking a ferry ride from Seattle up into the San Juan Islands with a semi-truck. She goes, really? I said, yeah. We got a ferry booked. The Anacortes Ferry is north of Seattle. You got a time you got to be there in the morning, and you get over to the San Juans. It's about 45-minute boat cruise.
Yep.
And you go over there, and you got to unload when you get there. So you got to take your help with you and everything.
Wow.
End up unloading the whole day. And even when you came back, they run 2 ferries through the San Juans. You had an option to run a Canadian ferry or a U.S. ferry. Well, if you run the Canadian ferry, you got to pass customs. So I'm like, we'll just wait for the U.S. That way you ain't got to deal
In
with
the U.S. Now, are these islands Canadian or?
They're American, but the ferries run through there to the U.S.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's 2 ferries that operate that island. That's way north.
And was this somebody that was moving there?
Yeah, somebody was an L.A. city engineer retiring, moving him up there. They were paying for the move.
Okay.
The city paid for it to get him up there. That type of stuff.
Wow.
Just stuff like that with the van lines. You never know where you're going to go.
Yeah. No. What would you say? You're talking about the family, and I think that's important to talk about, especially people that are interested in this. Is that being OTR is not as and I want to be realistic and not paint it all roses and rainbows, because it's not. It's really hard, for being away from friends, being away from family. Talk about that and how you kind of navigated that throughout the years.
Again, it was like a lot of people get in a situation where it's the money that determines whether you're coming home or not.
Yeah.
Right? But you get in business knowing that the truck dominates everything. It's the business you decided to get into. So make your family available when you have enough money to go home and see them, whatever way it takes. Like I told you, we flew home. There was enough money in the van lines businesses you couldn't turn down. That one, they always gave you a better load, and a better load you couldn't refuse it, and book a flight. Before everything got unloaded, you sail that truck into Seattle, jump a flight, and go home for a week. trust me, they know your truck's in Seattle empty. If they're busy enough, they'll get you another load. You fly back to Seattle, reload, get the hell out of here.
That's crazy. The truck would be in Seattle,
Yeah,
and
you
you'd
leave it.
fly back home,
Find a good
and
parking.
spend some time with family, and then come all the way back.
Most of the agents would let you park at their place out of the way.
Yeah.
At least leave it for a week.
Wow.
I mean, there was enough money in to do that. Money's a little tighter these days, a little more expensive for everything. But the other thing was, if you do your numbers right, and to get into a truck, if you are already having a problem, this is the owner-operator side. If you're already going to have a problem, and you didn't save enough money to get into a truck, maybe you should wait to save enough money to get into a truck so you don't get into those compromised situations where you don't have enough money to go home. Maybe you should wait, build up savings.
I think that's some great advice, because you see that, and I see that all the time talking to students where, no, I want to buy my own truck and be an owner operator, and then I'm like, well, what happens when the turbo blows and it's $5,000?
Yeah.
They're like, well, it's going to be a newer truck, so that shouldn't happen. Turbos blow on newer trucks. These things happen. What is your advice to somebody maybe just getting out of school, just getting their CDL?
The way I did it is I was able to save up enough money on my own, not even to buy the truck. It was once you get out there operating, always run around with cash at the time. Kind of dangerous, but always had a $12,000 buffer with me. And I mean, I could get, back in the day, you could get your motor rebuilt for $5,600-$6,500. So remember when you go down.
Wow.
When you go down.
Times have changed.
Yeah. When you go down, you're also not making money.
Yeah.
That's the bad part. You're spending money and not making money at the same time. So that's why it's an ugly street. So, at times I had enough money to, if the truck, and I did blow it up a couple times on the road and had to have it done. We got a rental truck to continue on because you got customers to take care of.
Sure.
We rented a truck. Didn't really know, but I know that I had dates to hit, so I hit the dates, went and got a rental truck, finished it out, came back, got my truck. After that, if you work for the right company, my company I was working for at the time paid for the rental truck. You're all stressed out about it after it was all over, paid for the rental truck.
Paid for the rental
Didn't
truck.
cost me anything.
So that way you can
because I was already spending money.
Yeah, you can keep moving that way.
Keep moving.
Yep.
There's other things that may or may not happen, but don't even know if that would. So if you keep in good with your company, you have transmission issues and all that stuff. A lot of these companies, if they want you to keep going, will forward you the money to keep you going.
To allow you to keep going.
To fund you to keep going if you don't have the means to do it.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of this that you got to have good relations with the company.
Now
that's hard to do.
Yeah. Now, so I have some experiences of having different breakdowns on the road, but I want to get your opinion on this. When you have a breakdown on the road, for maintenance wise, what's been your experience? Has it been mostly good, or do they, let's just say, like to pad the bill a little bit?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because you don't really know the internals. I'm not an internal engine guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they must have done it right for me. I mean, with all this new stuff, the electronics and stuff,
yeah.
a lot of follow-up. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I just know this, that if you were out in, say, Oregon and California, you do whatever you got to do to get it home, but make sure when you do get home, take the time off with your family and get it fixed right by somebody if
absolutely.
You can. You might be able to have it towed.
Yeah.
We do heavy haul. We come and get you. It's going to be pricey.
You've done that before. You've gone out to places.
There's guys out in Oregon that'll get it over here.
Really?
I'll
be darned.
Get up. You got to contact a few people, start asking questions. That's why you got a phone. But
and it's just
is it easier? Is it going to be $3,000 to get it hauled back here, as opposed to a $30,000 rebuild? You don't trust.
Exactly.
Get it to your reputable guy. 10-4 trucking, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that the truth? Oh, yeah. So, and it seems like I see that more and more where you see guys like you, you get a big truck breakdown, like an engine or a transmission in Iowa. It's like, nope, we'll just run down there and grab it because we trust our own people.
Well, right. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Motor stuff is That's why guys end up going with crate motors to get the warranties.
Oh, sure.
They swap them out.
So a lot, and I've heard of that too, where a lot of companies don't even do their own rebuilds nowadays.
$50,000 crate motor, but you're still down for a week and a half trying to get into a shop you don't even know.
No,
even worse.
But then you actually have a warranty on it.
Yes.
Because if you say personally do the rebuild, there's no warranty on that. You know,
you got a warranty as long as that company's still in business. What's a warranty?
Yeah, but exactly. And who's signing that warranty? You know, who's gonna go to bat for you? So it's something on a kind of different direction that I've actually gotten calls about, and they're worried about autonomous trucking and AI, and what are your thoughts on that? And do you see that being a problem with people getting into the industry moving forward?
I do, but there's nothing we can do about it because it's a free market to do whatever they want. If they feel free to put driverless trucks on the road, there's nothing I can do about it.
I was at a conference last year in San Antonio, and they said they really didn't think this was going to happen in a massive scale for like 40 to 50 years. And they said, and one of the correlations they said to me, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on it, is so commercial planes have been autopilot, autonomous, 95% of the time for the last 50 years. Yeah. And yet there still needs to be 2 commercial pilots in every single plane. Right. So even if we have that autonomy, right, and there's still probably going to be a driver there just in case to make sure nothing goes awry and there's no issues.
I don't worry about it. Like most of the stuff I do, it ain't going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, standard freight bot dock to dock stuff. Yeah, there's going to be possibility of that happening.
Yeah.
But it's only going to take one accident.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's over. I mean, how the rest of the guys that actually driving the truck for the company, they got one autonomous truck. It's only a matter of time. You've seen it.
Yeah.
And you still got to have 2 drivers in it, so it's an overpriced truck with overpaid drivers doing nothing.
Doing nothing, yeah.
That ain't going to go nowhere.
Well, and I think, I think the technology in trucking, we do have a long ways to go. I mean, the fact of the matter is you should be able to sit behind the wheel, let go of the wheel and let it I'm thinking on Nebraska, going across Nebraska, 600 miles. It's completely straight. Like we don't have a truck right now that you can just let go of the steering wheel and let it drive straight for 600 miles. And so that literally doesn't exist, and let alone the autonomous AI trucks. It's
here's the other thing nobody even thinks about. The customer. Does that customer want their stuff in that truck? Maybe that's the most important part of this whole thing. You do whatever you want. That customer don't want their freight in a driverless truck. It's over. You ain't got no hauling to do. So
that's a huge aspect.
You might not be hauling anything.
Who's in charge of that load? Who's going to make sure that load is secure and safe? And who's going to do the pre-trip on the truck and trailer? I think a lot of people are getting way ahead of themselves with saying that stuff, because it's who's going to back up to the dock? Who's going to fuel the truck up? There's a lot of stuff
but
here.
You already know we've fought for years trying to get more room on those trailers for the customer to ship more product. You move into the EV trucks, they're so weighted down, very few products are going to make it. You can't get a full load on that truck just because of that truck is so heavy. So, again, we're right at the customer. We're going to have to charge you more to haul less. That ain't ever going to fly.
No, exactly. I don't see them reducing the amount that we can haul.
It's a salesman issue. If I was trying to sell you an electric truck, I'm going to pump it up. Mm-hmm. Of course I'm
Absolutely.
Will it make money for you, or will it keep the customer happy? God only knows.
Yeah, we'll see. And that's where, I'm curious what, and I know a lot of things have changed, but what's been some of the big things that have changed in trucking from when you first started to today? And now remind me of that span again. A couple of years.
17 years.
17 years.
60.
Yeah.
66 going on 67.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a few million in between there.
A few million miles in between. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'll never have a few million miles under my belt. So I'm a little jealous of that. And
Sitting in that seat for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of those big changes that you see? I mean, it's probably, there's so many, it's probably hard
Well,
to.
I don't know. Trucks. The trucks themselves, the motors, the E-lugs, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. ELDs, I know.
I mean, I get the
Everyone
E-lug
loves those. Yeah.
I totally get the E-lug thing, but in some instances, I think it's not right. For some,
Yeah.
it is right.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think is that another case of there was a handful of guys, kind of renegades, that were breaking the rules, causing accidents, and then the whole industry, or the feds just went down on everybody, and now everyone gets punished.
That's what they
it.
claimed, right? That's the people selling you E-lug claiming that. A bunch of them rodeo cowboys up there tearing it up.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to see the numbers. How many cowboys are still tearing it up with E-lug?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
They won't post those numbers.
No, and there's actually I was just reading Transport Topics the other day, and did you see they pulled like a couple dozen ELD units, E-logs, because of their ability to cheat them, and people would like
it.
Like
zeroed on
program them differently, and I'm like, people are gonna find a way.
I had them for 20 years, and
we
were doing the same thing. Whenever we got a new E-lug set up, they purposely would do everything to that thing possible. Because then you could claim stupidity. Like, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
I don't know why.
And even the PC time, it seems like a lot of people are pushing the personal conveyance. Where I drove from here to Chicago. It was personal conveyance.
That's the other thing. Now
for a joyride.
Before you couldn't advance the load, now you can. In personal conveyance,
but only
yard move was the other one.
Yeah. Because
the reason they changed yard move was because of me.
No. Why is that? There's a story here.
When I was running rail yards, I'd get into one rail yard, then I'd have to go to another rail yard. Well, conveniently would stay in yard move from one yard to another. I didn't know there was
that could be
interstate in between.
That could be
50
an hour.
miles.
Yeah, a couple
still
hours.
In yard mode.
Still in yard mode. I'm still in the yard.
Then they spent speed limits on it. Then they spent distance on it and locked it all down.
Yep.
And still to this day, if you're cruising around a yard, everybody's doing the E-lug creep 5 miles an hour, trying to stay in yard move.
Yep.
The biggest thing is the DOT brake. They allowed the yard move to actuate as a DOT brake. So here you are doing the 5 mile an hour yard creep, and you're actually taking your brake at the same time.
Yeah.
They allowed yard move.
They allowed yard move for that 30 minute. That like 30-minute provisional is now you can take that,
throw it in yard move.
Throw it in yard move. That's a nice little trick right there. That's
what it is. Some companies will, again, they can lock that out.
Okay. Yeah, but
I mean,
that's
I got guys creeping around my yard right now over there. GPS. If you're on a GPS system, you're out on a legal street and yard move. Well, that's not legal either.
No. And that 5 miles an hour is boom. That's the cutoff to when it automatically goes to driving, and then it starts working down your driving time.
Right.
So
or a distance, they say, at 300 yards, it can't be yard move anymore. They can lock that out.
They can do the distance on that
probably
too.
why they did the upgrades and eliminated some of them E-lugs that were not doing it, or companies were turning around and violating it on their own issue. The safety guys get in there and manipulate. Now they've got it to where you could go in and redo your log afterwards.
Yep.
And we got companies not allowing you to redo your log. They have to be there while you're operating or renovating your log.
Okay, yeah. So like they have to approve those edits and whatnot on there. Okay.
Log editing used to be on my discrepancy because I'm the one responsible for it. Now the companies will not allow log edit.
That it's one of those regulations, and I think about when that came out, and then they did all that funky stuff and changed the hours of service, and you could only take one 34-hour reset, and and it had to be 2 periods between 1 and 5 a.m. You remember that? Like, and that was that they ended up getting rid of that because they said all these drivers 5 a.m. boom, they were hitting the road. And it was like mass congestion and
Well, that's not the other part of it. Nobody travels at night.
yeah.
I mean, the roads are clear at night. If you can run those hours, you can put a lot of miles in at night.
Exactly. In any major city, you hit Chicago, Atlanta.
If you ain't at
whatever.
these truck stops
Yeah.
by 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you ain't getting a parking spot because everybody's on that same schedule. So somehow you need to shift your schedule if you can to run better hours.
So
through all the
when I
congestion.
drove 15 years ago, I saw this a little bit, but nowhere near what you see today. It seems like I'm seeing trucks parking on ramps all over the place. So why is there such a big truck
These guys,
parking shortage
they
right
don't
now?
plan ahead. Planning, E-log and planning is brutal. Planning ahead your day, they say, instead of playing on your phone, planning your day. Trying
good
to
advice.
where you can get to and get there in a reasonable amount of time. Get your reserved parking if you can, if it's free, if you're looking at a free parking spot. These guys don't plan, so they sit on the side of the freeway because when they're out of hours, that's as far as they go. I see them on the tollways now all the time. They just go till they run out, sleep right there. I'm
Just
like,
go till they run out and then park on the side.
You
Now,
wanna
is there
get-
any advice, advice to those guys? Like, yeah, I like that. Plan ahead. Know about when you're going to run out of hours. And would you say, do you like to an hour before your time
yeah.
to start looking?
Well, and
2 hours?
you already seen what goes on. They plan ahead as far as sitting at the fuel island for a half hour.
Yeah.
Then pissing everybody off. That's
Yep.
not right.
No, exactly.
That's not right to anybody else that's got to go.
Don't pull their truck
Don't
forward.
feel as if you're
Yeah.
that important.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
People want to go.
Yeah.
You got teams that can't afford that kind of time, stuff like that. I mean, there's no more etiquette left out there. But hopefully,
Why is that? Why is that?
Because it's about themselves rather than everybody else. Think about everybody else too.
Yeah, that's one thing I love the UP is it's one of those places when I lived downstate for a while and came to the UP, you break down on the side of the road or you
Yeah.
run out of gas, anything. I mean, in the UP, I could bet it won't be 5
Oh,
minutes
yeah.
before somebody is
Yeah.
there stopped to help you fix that tire, to help you get gas in your car, whatever. You know what I mean?
So all that's changed.
Yeah.
E-log
So-
changed all of that, even at the truck stops.
So nowadays it's very
Everybody's in a
different.
hurry.
Everyone's
We're all
in a
in a
hurry,
hurry.
and everyone's
So if you're in a hurry every time you're somewhere, did you really do a good pre-trip or a post-trip because you're in a hurry?
yeah, probably not. Probably not. Yeah, because when you do your pre-trip, you're on duty, and that's eaten away at your logbook, and so that almost makes you rush things.
Yeah.
Maybe more than you should.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of kind of doing your pre-trip and a lot of guys today, and I feel like it's getting worse. They just take their key, stick in the ignition, start, and go.
Sit there and play on their
Yeah.
sit there and play on
Yeah,
their
yeah. Play on their
They
phone
give it
first.
10 minutes
all right?
going, I did mine.
They got to scroll the tic tac for a few minutes. What would be your advice to, someone getting in the trucking industry on kind of doing it the right way, the safe way, when it comes to doing a good pre-trip?
You just got to take the time to do it. 10 minutes. I can do a good pre-trip in 10 minutes, but at least you're looking over everything.
Yeah.
What else you going to do? You might as well get out and look around. I mean, surprising what you might find looking around.
What are the main
Especially
things?
on relay units, because these guys come in, this truck just got off the road, you're relaying it to another location.
Oh, yeah.
Where we get stuff that's been set there all night. But as you know, everything that sets there all night is the best time to find out if the tires actually have air.
Yeah, absolutely. If the
But-
tires have air, the puddles underneath the trucks,
Yeah,
that's
all
when
that
you'll
stuff.
see a tiny little power steering leak.
Yeah.
Let that truck sit there when it's warm
Yeah.
at nighttime and see a nice puddle underneath. Okay, yeah. I've seen
So,
that a few
they,
times.
they come in and they've got a tough schedule. Well, okay, you can't really speed through a pre-trip. I mean, you got 10 minutes, do it, take the time to do it right, because you and I both know tire failure is probably one of the biggest. If
Yeah.
you didn't,
Yeah.
well, then there's no roadside left up here.
No.
We can't get anybody at night to do roadside.
No.
You're on your own.
So what do you do up if you blow a tire up here where you don't have that roadside? It's 2:00 in the morning.
You got to wait. Then you don't even log in, so everything's going to get delayed.
Yeah.
But that's, did the guy do a good post trip or did it happen overnight? There are tires you can run that go low on air. You can run them the next day. If they're just low, air them up. But then when you get back, get that thing checked, see if there's something in the tire.
Exactly. So say it's got a very small leak. It's like you might be able to limp it back, air it up, keep it full. If it's not exploded.
Like AJ said, the air hose. Got to have that air hose. That could save you hours.
Oh,
Just those little tips like he was suggesting. We did the same thing when we were on railroad containers, which is the worst fleet in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Pile of junk in a pile.
Those are terrible.
They take it out of the pile and give it to you.
Nobody takes care of those, yeah.
So you're on your own.
Now, was that for intermodal?
Intermodal.
Intermodal, all right.
Drayman.
Okay, so
I was a drayman for 10 years, a real drayman.
Really? So
in Chicago.
A lot of people don't know what intermodal is. Describe that to somebody that never heard that word before.
It's the pool, like I just said, the largest pool that never gets looked at because there's a bunch of, until they
no
take
maintenance on this stuff.
They stack the chassis up, literally stack them 10 high, stack the containers 6, 8 high, loaded, empty. You're assigned a yard and a trailer number, box number. When you get a box number, if you get there and it's off the train and on a chassis, not necessarily mean it's good chassis. There's other, each yard has its own idea of how you get a chassis. If yours is no good, the DOT is bad, flat tires, wiring, all kinds of stuff right in front of you. You could spend 2 hours just flipping that chassis to a good one. So then they let you go look for a good chassis. Find one, but you only can look in specific lots. They didn't tell you that. Not any one available.
Oh,
because
what a disaster.
In the 40s and 20s, the chassis owner has to match up with the box owner. That's important because those are the ship lines tied to all these chassis and boxes. So they only want you to use their chassis. Assigned to their boxes. They own 2 or 3.
Wow.
See, that's the part of the 40-20 stuff. It's all designed to go to the coastlines and get on ships and go for a ride, depending on what you got. Or you're picking up stuff that's coming in from overseas. They want only use their chassis to get to the customer, do the delivery, bring it back to the yard, take it back apart. Some yards will let you park it empty. Some yards will have you take it back apart and put it in the empty line. So that could be some of the yards, you could be in lines 20 deep of different trucks doing the same thing.
And you're waiting.
You're waiting.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a map of the yard. Some of these rail yards are 2 miles by a mile. You can get lost in a rail yard.
Oh my God! Especially, I'm thinking of like Chicago.
Yeah, massive.
And you go over those rail yards, like weird. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I mean, they're just so big.
Well,
and huge.
We used to get fingerprinted to get in these yards because you can't have any Tom, Dick, and Harry in there.
No.
So
was that via like a TWIC card or?
No, not a TWIC card. It was just set up for that particular rail yard.
Okay. Yeah.
And be registered in there so they know who you are when you come in. And when you come in, then you enter into a kiosk of what you're after. They'll give you a location. Go from there. It might be all there on a good chassis ready to go.
It might not.
It might not even be on a chassis.
But essentially, you had to have a background check before.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let just anybody
you
in there.
registered like 10 different rail yards.
Yeah.
Get that all out of the way, and then you're good to go. So if it didn't have a chassis, 53s were usually on a chassis. 40s and 20s are in a stack.
Okay.
So then you get a stack location about a mile long, 20 wide, 20 high, and they've got a gantry crane working the stack. So you got to get in there and vertically look through. They leave enough lane for you to get out of your truck and walk. But they give you a letter. You park in the letter location. Then you physically got to go wait for the gantry to get to you. Now, again, you're in line with 20 trucks on both sides of the stack getting boxes. So you got to get coordinated with the operator.
Yeah.
Some of the gantry cranes are 150 feet tall. You got to walk up to the base, operate the radio on the gantry crane.
150 feet tall.
Right.
Wow.
Well,
that's
they're
massive.
above the stack.
Yeah.
It's
they're
huge.
above everything.
They're above everything.
I don't think most people can really understand the massive size of these things.
Yeah, well, the big stack. So they spread over the stack And there's certain areas that these big wheels travel on. You got to stay out of the wheels way or you get run over by these things. You got to get inside of the crane and stay inside of the crane. It's bad stuff, man.
It's like a big life-size game of Pac-Man.
Oh, yeah.
You know that?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's-
And this thing's massive.
yeah.
So, you might get, after you find your box and you're parked, this guy, say, runs east-west on the stack. The line your box is in on is north-south from you. So you're in line, and sometimes if they don't have a radio, you've got a finger, you got to stack 2, box 10. You're using hand signs, or he already knows where your box is. But you've seen this mess. It could be at the bottom 3 rows in. Trying to tell him that with your hands or without communication is ugly. But you see where your box is, and as he's loading other trucks, there he's moving other boxes to get to this box, and he might be stacking all these boxes on your box. When he gets to your box, then he's got to move all these again. Yay!
And you're watching all this.
Watching
happen.
all this go on, going, I don't know how long I'm going to be here.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a minute.
So, the other thing in that is you got to make sure when you're parked, you're facing the east-west, like I explained, because when he grabs your box, some of these cranes don't have the ability to do a 360 or a 180 on you. You're not paying attention in the dark. He'll put your box on backwards. Ooh, doors are in front. How'd that happen?
Doors are in front, yeah, and then
It'll fit on her.
And then how do you secure those intermodal
Well, they got
boxes
all
on
them
there?
locks. That's the other thing. When you look for a chassis, you got to make sure all them locks are good. Part of that pre-trip. That's why draymen it's a whole different game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
It's,
know-
it's very different because, I think the average person looks at a container versus like a dry van or a reefer van. They look the same, kind of. You know what I mean? But obviously they're complete. The bogie assembly, even the frame, because those containers are sitting on essentially a full frame and bogie assembly compared to a dry van that's all connected. So it's a very different kind of trucking and stuff like that. Like, making sure the doors are facing the right way. That's kind of a problem. Yeah, the doors are facing the cab.
Absolutely.
It'd be a little hard to unload that puppy.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all part of it. You learn that because if you messed it up once, you'll never do it again.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. 53 is never a problem because they typically can't even go on there backwards. And
Okay.
that's why most of the 53s are mounted on chassis before you get in the yard. That's why I stuck to doing a lot of 53s.
Okay.
They got the bigger floor ratings and they're good for paper. That's why
Yep.
we were all in paper. We did a lot of 53s.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when there's no paper, you got to do something else. So it gives you the option to go all over.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you got to know Chicago.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that have never driven through Chicago with their personal vehicle, let alone a semi truck and trailer. What's your best advice for someone going to Chicago for the first time on navigating Chicago? I'm thinking of all the low bridges that are down there.
Right. Everybody's trying to use a tool to get the route, right? They want a truck or a map with a height set that they don't have to pay attention to. I don't really know if there's one I trust yet.
Really?
Well, they have them, but I don't know if I'd trust them,
Yeah.
right? Everything
Well,
fails.
and you still got to be smarter than the technology.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at my GPS sent me over a pedestrian bridge that's barely wide enough for a golf cart, but I took my semi truck across it.
Right. And as you know, I mean, they've dug a lot of the bridges out in Chicago over the years, but there's still a lot of them that aren't. Not as many. Everyone was a 10 foot, 12 foot.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. You had a zigzag around a lot of little bridges for many years.
I take Google Maps. Western Avenue is pretty good, except when you get into right downtown. Western Avenue is a major through street. Well, I'd be sitting on 94 and right when you come into Chicago and it's just stopped. There could be a wreck. You could be there for an hour. So I'm looking at the exit going, how do I get through here? I pull up Google Maps, right? That's the common thing to do. If you're sitting still, pull up your phone, can't move. You go right to your live view of street maps, and it shows you the actual what your street looks like, the buildings,
Sure.
Street view will give you the actual building. So if you drop your pin, you zoom down as tight as you can, drop your pin right on the highway. As soon as you get street view, turn that boy around and look at the sign that says how high that bridge is, because it'll be posted at that bridge.
But that street view, I think that's a nice little hack right there. Literally turn around and you'll be able to see that sign. And that's really the best way to know is like what's posted on the sign by the DOT. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
That's probably the best advice anybody can do. You can walk your way across town in places you've never been. You got 15 minutes to go over your phone. You can get yourself through town without worrying about it. You know the bridge heights when you go.
And then you can literally take it one intersection, one street at a time. Because anyone can get down there. You pretty much take the highway all the way down there. It's once you get into the inner city and different things where it's like, okay, what about now? But in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively easy until you get into the town, and then that's when everything changes.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice before we wrap this up on new CDL drivers just making their way into the industry?
I think it's a good business to be in. I mean, things are going to change here.
I feel like
For the
things are
better.
already starting to pick
Yeah,
up.
I mean, everything is related to volume, so we just do a lot of different things in this business, but be universal, keep a wide open mind of what you want to do when you get into this. Freighting is just the beginning of it, the way I look at it. Anybody can freight. Once you get into the business, start looking for something you enjoy, a little different. Could be anything. Could be hauling machinery. It could be sticking to freight. Some guys like it.
Yeah.
Home time, all that's important. Get out there and make some money,
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you again
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. Really appreciate it, and have yourself a great day. Thank you.